Good morning, students. In the last session, we discussed poem, and we have almost finished 2 poems. Now we shall move on to the short stories. The first story in your book is Chief Seattle Speech. Chief Seattle was a Native American chief, a member of Squamish tribe, and a prominent figure among his people who pursued a path of accommodation and reconciliation with the white settlers. This lesson is a speech that he delivered in 1854. He delivered this speech at Washington, and in it he pursued the path of accommodation to white settlers in U.S., the state of Washington. He recollects the hostilities existed between the white and his tribal people. This speech contains arguments in favor of ecological responsibility and respect of Native Americans' land rights. He thinks that his old tribal people will never like to resume the old hostilities. The hostilities are the disinterest and the arguments and the angry towards the other group, which was remaining in the older people. The reason for it was but there was a time when the white man began to push their forefathers westward. These were the hostilities between them, and he wishes that these hostilities may never return. He says that the young men of his tribe may like to take revenge, but the older tribal people are wise and would never like to resume the hostilities towards the white. He hopes that their good father in Washington would protect them, and his brave warriors would prove to be a great wall of strength against their ancient enemies, who frightened their women, children, and the old men. Then in reality, he would be their father and they would be his children. So, this is what the hostilities that existed between the white and the tribal people of Seattle. Then he seeks that he hopes that their good father in Washington would protect them. He realizes that they are two distinct races. Here they means the white people and the red American, the tribal people of Chief Seattle. Why he feels that God of their white people is not their God. The God of the white people loves his people and hates the tribal people, that is the red children. He has forsaken his red children. He then refers to his own God, the Great Spirit. So the tribal people considers the God as a Great Spirit, who also seems to have forsaken them. So they feel the God of the white people and the God of red Indians both have forsaken this people at present. The white man's God neither loves his people nor protects them. They seem to be orphans who can look nowhere for help. Thus he remarks that the two distinct races, that the white men and the red Indians, are of separate origin, separate destinies, and there is very little in common between them. Now we see what is the difference between the religion of the white and the religion of the red people. The white man's religion was written upon tablets of stone by the iron finger of their God. It's a story of Moses. When Moses went up into Sinai mountain, God reveals to him his plan for the people, Israelites, who were moving to a chosen land. It's a story given in the Bible. And it is said that Moses was given a tablet in which God Himself wrote 10 commandments, that which should be followed by the people. So here the Seattle is mentioning that stone tablets in which the law was written, and then people considered that as a uh, thing that is very special to them, and they carried it all along wherever they went. So he speaks that that tablet of stone which was written by the fingers of God, and that the people of God could not forget it. But the red man could never comprehend or remember it. They never bothered about what was written in the tablet and given to the white man. But their religion is the traditions of their ancestors. So for them there was no written tablet, no written laws, and no pictures of God. But for them, their religion was the tradition of their ancestors. It constituted the dreams of their old people, which was written in their hearts, and it was passed from generation to generation. He further says that their dead ceased to love them and the land of their nativity. That means the white people's dead, when once buried, they forget about the dead, and the living forget about their dead. But for the tribal people, the dead of their race never forget their beautiful world that gave them their being. So, according to Chief Seattle, their tribal people believe that dead is alive in their land, and they believe that their dead people do not go away from their land because it is the place where they have received their being. Then he says that the red men always fled the approach of the white man, means they were not interested to accept the white man coming there. But the white man's proposal seems to Chief Seattle something fair. So we see here it's a response letter to Chief of Washington, that he has asked the people of Red Indians to give them the geographical land. And then he feels that this proposal that is kept by him is something worthwhile. For a while, he mourns over the grave of their powerful people, and then later on, he philosophizes the tribe and then the tribal nation. And like she speaks that they are like the waves of the sea, but now they are like scattered trees in a forest. So we have here, so he feels that there is very little in common in them, both the white and the red Indian. He refers to the proposition received from the white man. He thinks that the proposition seems to be fair and his people will accept it, but he puts a condition before they take the decision. So he remarks that they will ponder over their proposition and convey to them their decision. But before the decision, he puts a condition. What is the condition now? The condition is that they will be free to visit the tombs of their ancestors. So, first of all, they will be giving the land to them, but they should be given the permission to visit their ancestors, means the tombs of their ancestors, the dead, friends, and children at any time. So, the tombs of their ancestors, the dead people, must be uh, visited by them at any time of the day or year. Every part of this soil is sacred to them. Why? Because of their dead people are buried there, and that is a sacred place for them. The dead people of his race will love these somber solitude. That means these lonely places are loved by their dead people. He thinks that when the last red man shall have perished, these shores will swarm with the invisible dead of his tribe. See how he speaks. He says that the dead of the white man never comes back or remembers. The living people don't remember their dead. But this tribal people believes so much in the presence of their dead in their land. And he says, even if the last man in his tribe dies, and then the land will never be solitude, it will not be left alone. Why? The spirit of this dead people will be moving on the face of their land. So at night, the deserted streets will be thronged with the returning host that once filled them and still loves the beautiful land. What is the meaning? The returning host, that means the spirit of the dead people. So the chief says that the white man will never be alone in this land. So that is what the story is all about. This is a real letter written by Chief Seattle. The speech, not a letter, the speech that is delivered by Chief Seattle in Washington in response to the request made by the Chief of Washington. And then here we have got the story that was the plot that is conceived in the mind of the chief and then given for the story. Now let us see the story, the Chief Seattle story. So here we have the first paragraph. Yonder sky that has swept tears of compassion upon my people for centuries untold, and which to us appears changeless and eternal, may change. Today is fair, tomorrow it may be overcast with clouds. My words are like the stars that never change. Whatever Seattle says, the great chief at Washington can rely upon with such a certainty as he can upon the return of the sun of the or the season. The white chief says that big chief at Washington sends us greetings of friendship and goodwill. This is kind of him, for we know he has little need of our friendship in return. His people are many. They are like grass that covers vast prairies. My people are few. They resemble the scattering trees of a storm swept plain. The great and I presume good white chief sends us word that he wishes to buy our land but is willing to allow us enough to live comfortably. This indeed appears just, even generous, for the red man no longer has right that he needs respect, and the offer may be wise also, as we are no longer in need of an extensive country. So let us see what does Chief Seattle say in the introduction part. Yonder sky that has swept tears. What does meaning that here? Yonder sky means there. We already know the word yonder. Yonder sky that has wept tears of compassion upon my people for centuries untold. So, for years together, his people have been in tears and at the mercy of someone else, and which to us appears changeless and eternal, may change. So, for years together, this people, the Red Indians, Chief Seattle's tribe, has been in tears and living at the mercy of someone else, which they felt changeless and eternal, which they felt will never change. But now he feels it may change. So that condition of the red people may change. That is the feeling of Chief Seattle. Why? Today is fair, tomorrow it may be overcast with a cloud. He feels the status of the people of his tribe is okay today, but he does not know about tomorrow. Tomorrow it may be overcast with clouds. The condition of the people of his tribe may not be so good as he sees them today. My words are like the stars that never change. So he says, whatever I am going to speak in this speech are concrete, and my words will not change. Whatever Seattle says, the great chief at Washington can rely upon with as much certainty as he can upon the return of the sun or the season. So Chief Seattle is assuring the chief of Washington. He says that whatever I am saying, the chief of Washington can rely upon. He can believe whatever I say with much certainty, just like what he says, just like the return of the sun or the season. He says the sun sets and rises without any change or the season comes and goes without any change, without anybody's interference. The same way, the chief of Washington can trust and believe the words that the chief Seattle says. So he says that the chief of Washington, the white chief, need not to worry that chief Seattle will change his words. So just like the sun sets and rises and the season changes, uh, he can, that much certainty is given to him that his words can be believed. The white chief says that big chief at Washington sends us greetings of friendship and goodwill. So already Chief Seattle has received a letter from the big chief, that is the chief of Washington. He has sent them greetings. That itself is a great thing for Chief Seattle. So the chief of Washington is extending a hand of friendship and goodwill to them. That itself sounds very great to Chief Seattle. So this is kind of him, for we know he has little need of our friendship in return. So why he feels that this extension of friendship and goodwill is very kind of him? Because he knows the chief of Washington does not need the friendship of the red people. He feels that is a kindness towards the tribal people. His people are many, whose people the chief of Washington. So the American, the white people are more in number. They are like grass that covers vast prairies. You know what is prairies? Already you have come across. It's a area, a grassland area. So he says this prairies, just like the grass is covered in the land of prairies, just like that the people of white Americans are spread out. So my people are few. Here my people means the people of Chief Seattle are few. That means they are very few in number. They are not as much as the white people. They resemble the scattering trees of a storm swept plain. What does it storm swept plain means? After a great storm, great storm, what happens? The big trees only remains. The small ones all break down, or the small bushes or whatever is there, weak ones all falls down. So he says, my people are like a storm swept plain. That means very few here and there are standing, rest of the trees have fallen. Just like that, the number of the people of tribals are very few. The great and I presume good white chief sends us word that he wishes to buy our land. So what is the greetings and the expectation that the white chief has put? The white chief sends us a word that he wishes to buy our land. So this is a return speech that Chief Seattle makes at the request of the chief of Washington, that he sends them greetings and request them to sell their land to the chief of Washington. So he says that he wishes to buy our land but is willing to allow us to live comfortably. So he is not asking them to go away from their land, but since they are less in number, they could shrink themselves to a part of their land, and then the rest of the land could be sold to the white Americans. So the white people, the chief of the white, are ready to grant them sufficient place to live a comfortable life. This indeed appears just and even generous. What is that just and even generous? That he is allowing them to stay there comfortably and asking them to give the rest of the land to the white. For red man no longer has right, that he needs respect. Why he says this kind of respect was not shown to the red Americans, the red Indians earlier. They were attacked by every kind of people. But here, Washington, instead of attacking them, he is showing them respect and love, and then says he would like to buy their land and allow them to live there peacefully, comfortably. And the offer may be wise also, as we are no longer in need of an extensive country. Why? They do not need a big country now. They do not need a geographical land so vast because they are very few in number. So we see that here in the introduction, Chief Seattle speaks about the offer of the Chief of Washington, and then he says that he has sent them a hand of goodwill and friendship. And then he says, even though he does not need to send it, he has out of his kindness he has shown that respect for the red Indians. And then he express his desire to buy their land and allow them to live comfortably. And Chief Seattle feels this suggestion is good. But we will see all in the next class that whatever the desire of big chief at Washington is, Seattle has some kind of conditions to be put forward. We shall see that in the next lesson. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.